San Diego Comic-Con gave us our first look at Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and we are here for our very first ever trailer breakdown here at Apocalypse Movies. The trailer begins with Nakia looking out onto the ocean with what appears to be an Aztecan temple sitting in the background. This is a theme that becomes more present throughout the trailer, as Marvel has clearly decided to change the origins of Atlantis and Namor. Next we see Queen Ramonda sitting on the throne of Wakanda. While we obviously don't know at what point in the movie this is, it's safe to say that she has taken over for T'Challa after his death. Throughout the trailer, it becomes more and more obvious that she seems to be leading the country of Wakanda as the queen. She seems to have at very least become the voice of the people of Wakanda. Next we see the celebration of life for T'Challa. Everyone is dressed in white, celebrating the life of their king. In the background, you can see two statues, a male and a female, which if I had to guess would represent the kings and the queens of Wakanda, as the female statue's clothes resemble a lot of Queen Ramonda's clothing. This leads me to believe that this is the tombs for the Wakandan kings and queens. This could be the MCU's version of the Necropolis, also known as the City of the Dead, where the kings and queens of Wakanda are laid to rest. We then see our first shot of Shuri before panning up to the overhead shot of the Marvel Studios logo. In the overhead shot, you can see Queen Ramonda and Shuri walking down the road to the tomb while Wakandans chant and song. In front of them appears to be Okoye and Ayo escorting them down the road. If you look closely, Shuri seems to be carrying the Black Panther helmet in her hands, maybe to leave it in the tombs forever. Later in the trailer, we see a mural of T'Challa during the celebration while drummers play. While some of the writing is blocked by the drummers, translated, the mural reads, "The Panther King forever lives in us and rests." In this shot, we see what seems to be a Dora Milaje council. As you can see, there are 4 Dora Milaje standing in front of a different image on each wall. While we don't know for sure what each one means, each one may represent 4 out of the 5 tribes of Wakanda. The 5th not being shown would be the Jabari tribe. Also, you can see there are some Wakandan writing written on the wall. When translated, it says, "Rest in power, King T'Challa, our hero. It was an honor, Wakanda forever." In this scene, we see a pregnant woman, presumably Namor's mother, giving birth to Namor underwater. When we see the baby being held up, you can see his famous winged ankles, which comes from his mutation, meaning that in the movie, he will more than likely be the second mutant we are introduced to in the MCU after Ms. Marvel. The next 2 scenes we both get are both underwater. The first is our first official glimpse at Namor. The character looks great. He seems to be wearing some type of king's garb that ironically looks a lot like a painting we see Namor standing in front of later in the trailer. As far as the orb that Namor is standing in front of, I'm not quite sure what it is, but it does seem to kind of resemble Earth and maybe it's oceans. One other interesting thing we've learned is that Namor will not be ruling over the city of Atlantis. Instead, Atlantis will be called Talokan. This will be a pretty big change from the comics, but more than likely a good one, being that DC has already established Atlantis with their Aquaman. In the next frame, we see the Talokan riding massive whales to the surface. They also seem to be carrying spears of some kind, which may mean that they are riding into some sort of battle. Next, we see what appears to be a Wakandan research vessel. What leads me to believe that this is a Wakandan research vessel is the people on board. Everyone we see appears to be wearing white scientist coats. The first being a Wakandan woman being held hostage in front of a door. The second being 2 men dressed in white lab coats being held at gunpoint by some type of military personnel. The final clue that this might be a Wakandan research vessel is that later on in the trailer we see Okoye and the Dora Milaje storm the boat and attack the soldiers on board. We know it's the same ship because the door in the background is the same style as the one seen in the image of the woman being held hostage at gunpoint. It'll be interesting to find out who these soldiers are. It might be safe to assume that it is some form of government attempting to take advantage of Wakandan resources after the death of T'Challa. In the next shot, we see Shuri standing in the Wakandan throne room while it's on fire and flooded. While again we don't know at what point in the movie this is, there is another shot later in the trailer where we see a giant wall of water about to flood the Wakandan throne room. I have a theory at some point in the movie, Namor is going to flood the capital city of Wakanda. In the comics, Namor is able to create massive waves from the ocean, which is something we may see happen here in the movie, as there are multiple shots of the city getting flooded, including a shot of Okoye saving a young child as the waters rush in. Next, we see Shuri greeting Riri Williams in her lab in Wakanda. This movie will serve as an introduction and more than likely origin story for Riri Williams, aka Ironheart. The way Shuri greets Riri is very similar to when we see Shuri and T'Challa greet each other in Shuri's lab in the original Black Panther movie. If you recall, at the end of Black Panther, T'Challa informs Shuri that she will spearhead a science and information exchange in the US, and more than likely this is how Riri Williams is going to be introduced into the MCU, as a product of this program started by T'Challa and then brought to Wakanda to work with Wakandan tech. The next two frames seem to give more of a backstory to the origin of Namor. In the first shot, we see a house burning to the ground. If you look closely, you can see a horse-drawn carriage on the left-hand side, potentially signifying that this is the early 1900s. In the next shot, we see a young Namor watching as the house burns to the ground. More than likely, this is Namor's childhood home that he grew up with on land. Once his home was burned to the ground, this could possibly serve as the reason to drive him underwater and permanently stay there. In this shot, we see our first clear image of Namor coming out of the water on the beach, which looks to be run by fellow Talakans. Some things to notice in this shot are that we see Namor with his comic-accurate pointy ears. We also see that he's carrying a staff instead of a trident. This could be another change that Marvel chose to do to distinguish himself from Aquaman. This also seems to be some sort of outpost set up by his fellow Talakans. On the left, you can see Namora with her large headdress, as well as Atuma. Later, I'll talk more about the importance of those two characters. We then see our first shot of the Jabari headquarters, as well as M'Baku. While we don't know exactly what is going on, it could be another case of M'Baku being asked to help fight against Namor and save Wakanda. In the next frame, we see Io wearing white furs and putting her hands up, which leads me to believe that she is going to M'Baku in peace, and showing that she is not hostile. Next, we get a powerful voiceover from Queen Ramonda saying, "I am queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and my entire family is gone. Have I not given everything?" There could be a lot of things happening in this scene. Number one is her saying that her entire family is gone. Could it be that Shuri's been kidnapped at some point in the movie, maybe by the military personnel? It's pretty safe to assume that they wouldn't kill off Shuri. As Queen Ramonda is saying this speech, we also see she is addressing what could be the United Nations or some type of global security council. What is interesting is the men guarding her have their face obscured the whole time. This could be because the Dora Milaje are sworn to protect the Black Panther, while these men are sworn to protect the Queen. Finally, while Queen Ramonda is giving the speech, she seems to be giving it in the throne room. Who is she saying it to could be interesting. Could it be the other leaders of the tribe of Wakanda trying to oust her as queen? It could be Namor for all we know. If I had to bet though, it would probably be the tribe leaders of the other tribes of Wakanda. Next we get a great shot of Namora as well as Atuma on the freeway overpass. Namora in the comics is the cousin of Namor, while Atuma is an Atlantean warlord from the Skarka tribe who was exiled from Atlantis. In the comics, prophecy spoke of a child born in the Skarka tribe who would rule over Atlantis by force. So look to these two to maybe be some sort of antagonists working against Namor towards the end of the movie. Staying on the overpass, we see a shot later in the trailer of Okoye on the same overpass, potentially meaning we are going to see some sort of fight between these characters at some point in the movie. Another shot on potentially the same overpass reintroduces us to Agent Ross. Now in this shot, it is daytime, so maybe he's coming to see the aftermath of the fight between Namora, Atuma, and Okoye. In this shot, we see Riri hammering away at some vibranium, possibly assembling a Mark I Ironheart suit. She looks very similar to Tony Stark when he made his first Mark I Iron Man suit, hammering away in a sleeveless white tee. The next two shots, we see Namor being attacked on the beach where his outpost is. In the first shot, Namor and his fellow Talakans are being attacked from the sky, while in the second shot, M'Baku leaps out of a boat, attacking him and Namora while their backs are turned. In the next shot, we see a standoff with the Dora Milaje and what appears to be Anika because of the next shot. However, if slowed down, it is not Anika, but Okoye. Could Okoye have done something to gain the distrust of the Dora Milaje, causing them to fight and square off against her? In the second shot, we see a close-up of Anika with multiple people in the background wearing different colored armor. Anika's being blue, the red of the Dora Milaje, a man in green armor, and behind Anika, a man in Jabari furs, meaning that all the tribes may send their best warriors to fight with Anika at some point in the movie. Anika, of course, being a Dora Milaje trainer, could mean that she could lead a group of people against Namor. Skipping ahead, we see our first face shot of Namor in all of his glory. He looks amazing and a total badass. Marvel really went for the traditional Aztecan look for Namor. What is interesting is he seems to be on his throne and telling someone to cease their talking. Who it is we don't know, but we know from the comics. Namor doesn't take orders from anyone. Sticking with Namor, we get one of my favorite shots of the whole trailer, him floating down from the ceiling to his throne, which just happens to be the mouth of some type of large shark, maybe a great white, or some type of large sea creature. In the next shot, we get what appears to be a fight between the Dora Milaje and the Talakans who are scaling the walls of Wakanda. If we know one thing about Ryan Coogler, it's that he gives us awesome camera angle fight scenes, so expect this to be one of the highlights of the movie. Finally, we get our first glimpse of the new Black Panther. Now, a lot of people think that it is Killmonger due to the gold on the suit. However, in my opinion, it is definitely a female character. The first thing that makes me think that it is a female character is the wrist and the forearm. They seem to be a little bit smaller and thinner than a man's. If that's the case, it is more than likely Shuri or Nakia. My money is currently on Shuri, but wouldn't be opposed to Nakia. Another thing that makes me think it is Shuri is that around her elbows there is the mouth of a panther, which looks very similar to the style of blasters that she used in the first Black Panther movie. Also, it's pretty safe to assume that this shot is at the end of the movie, as you can see Namor in the background, and it seems to be maybe possibly the final fight scene. One last thing that I want to talk about is the 100 times that I've watched this trailer, I've noticed that all the Talakans, whenever they are above water, they all have blue skin color. But whenever they go underwater, they seem to have a normal skin pigment that is not blue. I wonder if this is a change that happens when a Talakan goes in and out of the water, or maybe it's certain people. Let me know what you guys think. Well, that's going to do it for our trailer breakdown of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. What did you think? Did I miss anything, or did you find something that I might not have caught? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Brian from Apocalypse Movies, and we'll see you next time.